of the biggest reasons we sabotage our progress and struggle to create what we want is because we're not clear enough on what we truly want and, even more importantly, why we want it. It is so much easier to know what we don't want, isn't it? Because we focus on it most of the time, often without even being aware that we do it. We focus on not liking how we feel, how the relationship goes, or the fact that we're alone, or how we look, or how much money we make, and on and on. Of course, we need to know what we don't want because that's how we know that we want something different. But being clear on what we don't want or being vague about what we do want doesn't provide our brain and body with the information and clear instructions they need to create something different. It's like getting into a cab and telling the driver, I don't want to be here, and expecting the driver to take us to the right place. Without clear instructions, our brain and body will always default to what they know, which is the past that we don't want, to make the hundreds of small or some big decisions we make every day. I say our brain and body make decisions because our mind doesn't end where our brain ends, and the mind is also in the body. In fact, our body is the subconscious mind. We know that the conscious mind makes up only 5% of our mind, and 95% are the subconscious mind, which is also the body with its automatic functions and habitual behaviors. It makes sense that 95% will be more powerful than the 5%, right? We may not necessarily realize this because we are aware of what's happening in the conscious mind, but not so aware of what's happening on the subconscious level. That's why it's the subconscious, because typically it's below our conscious awareness. The good news is that we can use our conscious mind to reprogram our subconscious mind, which is what drives everything we do. When we don't provide our subconscious mind with a clear vision and a good map to a different future, it will use our past experiences as data to predict and create the future, which will naturally be a lot like our past. It makes sense that if we think mostly the same thoughts, feel more or less the same emotions, and behave in the same or similar ways on a regular basis, it will create the same or similar outcomes. Here's the secret to getting our mind to do what we want. We need to tell it what it needs to know in order to do what it's designed to do, which is follow what it understands to accomplish what it believes is good for us. Our subconscious mind does what it knows and understands and believes is good for us. Imagine our brain, particularly our subconscious mind, is like a computer that runs programs that are on it, and it doesn't matter how these programs were installed or who installed them. And if we wanted to run a different program, we need to uninstall the old and install the new. But unlike with a computer where we can do it with just a few clicks, with our brain, it's a little bit more complex. Unfortunately, we can't uninstall any programs. However, when we install a new program, a new set of thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and behaviors, we naturally replace the old program over time. Here is how. Every time we think, feel, and act in a new way, we form new neuronal connections in our brain. And because there can only be so many connections, because our brain is finite, for the new connections to form, the old ones have to disconnect or prune apart. This is one of the ways that change happens in our brain, known as neuroplasticity. As long as we are focusing on something and putting our attention on it, we are putting our energy into it. This isn't some mystical concept, it's literally how the brain works. The brain cells or neurons that fire together wire together, and these connections get stronger. Every time we think the same thought, we send more energy to those neuronal connections or synapses, and they become stronger, which makes it easier to think those thoughts and harder not to think them. So, the only way to create a real change is to focus on what we want much more than on what we don't want. Here is your homework. Take the time to get as clear as you can on what you want and why it would be good for you. I know it sounds simple, but can be a bit difficult to do. So I created a PDF document with some powerful questions that will make it easier for you to get the clarity you need. You can download it from the link below. Here is the secret. As crucial as it can be to be clear on what we want, it's more important to understand why we want it and why it's good for us. You might say, well, it's obvious. Having more money, being with a certain person, living in a certain place, or driving a certain car is simply going to make me happy. And that sounds wonderful, but it's still just a concept in your conscious mind, and your subconscious mind is not necessarily on board yet. And remember, it's the subconscious that runs the show. So we need to give it what it needs in a way that it understands in order to do the work. And most importantly, not get in the way of what we're trying to accomplish. Our conscious mind understands thoughts, but the subconscious understands feelings. That's why it's so important to know why we want what we want. So, if what we want is not aligned with our feelings, values, and deeper desires, we are risking putting a lot of effort, time, and striving to achieve something only to realize that it wasn't what we really wanted and feel disappointed, burned out, even depressed. We all know of people who have all the material things they could possibly want, but they're still unhappy. Some of them are so miserable, they don't even want to be alive. What really fuels our journey of change and transformation is not our thoughts, but our feelings. And we need to have some strong feelings in order to accomplish something significant. So, if we're not desperate enough or passionate enough, we're not going to have enough driving force to keep us moving forward, and we might stop or give up every time we encounter an obstacle or a setback. Naturally, we want passion to drive us and not desperation, but more about it in the next video. If our conscious desires aren't aligned with our deep beliefs and values, it creates conflict within ourselves. The conscious mind wants to create and experience something new and different, but the subconscious mind wants to keep doing what's familiar, easy, and safe. This incoherence causes our energy to go in different directions, leading to a slow progress or no progress at all. But once our thoughts, feelings, and actions are all aligned, we become unstoppable. While we want to be as clear as possible about the what and the why, we want to be flexible on the how because there are many paths to achieving a goal. Getting too attached to the how will often limit us. You might have noticed this. Let's say you come up with a great idea for a business or some creative project or new career path, and just as you are starting to get excited, your rational mind jumps in and starts asking questions like, how am I going to do this? Do I have the money? Do I have the resources? Do I have the education? Do I have the time? Is my family going to approve? Unfortunately, that's usually where most dreams end. Or when we expect things to happen in a certain way and at a certain time and they don't, we think it means that they will never happen. We want to stay open to possibilities and be flexible about how things are going to come to us. Going back to the example of the cab driver, once we clearly tell the driver where we want to go, we can relax and trust that the driver will get us there in the best way possible. Okay, with a cab driver, maybe it's not always guaranteed, but we can trust our subconscious mind and the universe to find the best way to guide us toward the fulfillment of our desires. Once again, get clarity on what you want and why, and be flexible on the how. Download the provided digital workbook, answer the questions, align your thoughts and feelings, and tell your subconscious and the universe what you really want. In the next video, I will talk about another big reason why we sabotage ourselves and don't achieve what we desire. It's not believing that we are worthy and not loving ourselves enough. So, you're about to learn why you deserve everything you desire and how loving yourself is the quickest way to achieve everything you want.